Discovered hidden truths, this grandma's incredible journey from Jehovah's Witness to freedom. As Betty Harris sifted through the dusty attic, her fingers brushed against something that felt alive amidst the cobwebs, an old wooden box. The sight of it took her breath away. She hesitated, a war waging inside her. Was it right to disturb what had lain undisturbed for so long? Yet a part of her clamored for this moment, for the chance to unearth something unknown, something that might breathe life back into her weary heart. Betty, at 72, found herself wrapped in the fabric of her faith, a deep commitment to the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses. Her family's lineage was stitched together by these beliefs, strong and unyielding. But with every passing day, as her health began to decline, the burden of unfulfilled dreams felt heavier on her shoulders. What joy had she sacrificed at the altar of devotion? Maybe this box could reveal something vital to her existence, an escape from the suffocating confines that had bound her to a singular identity. Inside the box lay vibrant canvases painted by her late father, each stroke alive with the passion he never articulated. Looking at the colors splashed across the fabric, she felt a stirring deep in her soul. This was a father's heart laid bare, an artist's secret. A letter, yellowed with age, was nestled amongst the artwork. It addressed her by name, but as she read it, a whirlwind of emotions erupted within. Her father believed that faith and passion could coexist, that one's personal aspirations deserved space to flourish. A true struggle began to unfold in her mind, a kaleidoscope of feelings so vibrant it threatened to consume her. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. And so began a troubled awakening. As Betty held the paintbrush for the first time in decades, a maelstrom of uncertainty swept over her. The weight of her family's expectations pressed down like a heavy blanket on her chest. Memories of her motherhood shifted like sand beneath her feet. Were her children ready to embrace a mother who painted outside the lines? She barely got the brush to the canvas, her hand shaking with every stroke. Colors emerged, stark against her muted past. As she danced through hues of red, orange, and blue, she thought of the woman she once yearned to be. The fresh tears pooled in her eyes, a mix of grief and release flooding her heart. With every stroke, trembling under the weight of her unexpressed dreams, the canvas shifted from mere paint to an embodiment of her soul. But as shadows of self-doubt gathered, a question echoed in her mind: if she revealed her art to her children, would they feel betrayed by this unfolding of her true self, or would they understand her? Betty stiffened, the room steadying around her like a looming storm she could neither confront nor evade. With mounting dread, the thought hovered: life as she had known it felt ready to fray at the seams. How could she reconcile the threads of faith that bound her to a legacy, and yet, the emerging tapestry of a life unclaimed? As the canvas awaited her final touches, the culmination of her emotional turmoil ebbed and flowed within her, unresolved. Her fingers itched to reveal it all, yet she stood at the precipice, grasping for the courage to defy convention and embrace her colors at last. The door to her first exhibition loomed close, her heart quaking at the promise and peril that lay beyond. The moment stretched in the silence of her studio, the air thick with anticipation and trepidation. As Betty gazed at the half-finished canvas that bore witness to her emotional upheaval, the paint seemed to pulsate with the vibrancy of her hidden aspirations. She could feel it, an almost magnetized pull towards the part of herself that she had buried for too long. Yet, for every brushstroke she attempted, the oppressive weight of her upbringing clawed back at her. Was this really who she was? Did her children, who had grown accustomed to a dutiful mother molded by years of firm religious conviction, even know this passionate artist existed? With a swift motion, she put the paintbrush down, biting her lip to keep the wave of emotion at bay. Her father's words rang in her ears, urging her to embrace her truth as fiercely as he had chased his passion. The dichotomy of her existence swirled violently in her mind. Art is not a betrayal, Betty. It's a celebration, she recalled his voice saying when she had expressed interest in painting as a young girl. But now, decades later, the echo felt distant, muffled by years of acquiescing to family expectations. And yet, there was a small spark of defiance lighting a fire within her spirit. What had it cost her to silence her desires? She reflected on the regret woven through her memories, a quilt of untouchable ambitions layered under duty. Each thread snapped back to the present with a jolt, stark in contrast to the bright colors she now sought to lay bare on the canvas. This pivotal moment was carving out a new path, yet hesitation threatened to pull her from her newfound resolve. What if she simply painted? Just let the colors flow without restraint. No audience. No judgment. Only her expression. Betty picked up the paintbrush once more, the weight of the world momentarily lifted. She mixed the colors with urgency, allowing them to bleed, to intermingle, until a vibrant sunset emerged on the canvas, replete with the warmth of dusk and promise. The hues spoke to her spirit, whispered assurances of freedom, coaxing her heart into alignment with the unvoiced desires clawing their way to the surface. And then the thought struck her, bold and jarring: what would her friends from the congregation think? Would they decry this need for self-expression as vanity? Her entire life, she had wrapped herself in the comforting arms of their beliefs, yet here she was, dancing dangerously close to rebellion. The acquisitions of a new identity began emerging from deep within the artist, a woman unearthing the depths of her potential. The brush hesitated but then leaned into the canvas again, her strokes growing stronger, each one a step away from the suffocating expectations that had long defined her. With every flick and swirl, she felt barriers crack, breaking free from the stranglehold of conformity. Was it too late to reinvent herself? But she couldn't allow that thought to sabotage her progress. Betty's heart raced, pounding with a pulse of hope. She was reclaiming her narrative. She stepped back and looked at the piece with a mix of awe and fear. The sunset mirrored an inner transformation, her resignation to expectations layered beneath vibrant tones of passion and emotion. Laughter bubbled within her as she observed the art, reflecting resilience. It was more than a painting, it was a declaration of freedom. But still, the looming question remained: could she truly unveil this part of herself to her family? As if in answer, a text notification broke the silence, pulling her from the revelry of self-discovery. It was from her daughter, a simple inquiry about the preparations for the upcoming family dinner, but it struck a nerve, a reminder of the life she'd fit herself into. Betty stood torn, but with an unexpected resolve ignited within her. Beyond mere colors of paint lay a choice that could redefine her relationships. The time had come to face the truth, not just in her art, but in her life. Glimmers of clarity sparked in her mind. If she could embrace the artist within, maybe, just maybe, they could too. All at once, the cacophony of uncertainty transformed into resolve. She wouldn't just reveal her art, she would reveal her truth. Would they be ready for the frontiers of her identity she was ready to unveil? The promise of confrontation loomed ahead, electric and daunting, as her mind raced through possibilities and outcomes. Betty stood in the glow of her studio, the vibrant hues on the canvas swirled together like her emotions, intense, passion-filled, and swirling. Each stroke liberated something deep within her spirit, but the lingering fear of her family's judgment hovered like a shadow in the corner, darkened the brightness surrounding her newfound identity. Could this act of creativity truly resonate with those who had watched her mold into a persona of placidity and virtue? As she dropped her brush, the echoes of laughter from her children rang in her ears, moments that meant comfort and predictability. But now, the thought of their approval felt constricting. With newfound determination, she moved closer to the canvas, her fingers brushing against the textured paint. The sunset seemed to whisper this was more than mere art, it was a manifestation of her struggle, a window into the depths of her soul long hidden beneath layers of expectation. Betty inhaled deeply, the scent of paint mixing with the stale air of her familiar world. She could almost hear her father chiding her for underestimating the value of her voice. "Painting is your truth, Betty. Don't discard it." That statement fanned the flames of her defiance. Could she confront the very expectations that had shaped her existence? The prospect chilled her, yet it was an ice she craved to crack and break free from. Deciding she needed to articulate this journey to her family, she took out her phone, fingers dancing over the glass screen as she hesitated. What would she say? How could she illustrate the essence of her spirit in mere words? It would be a gamble, one that might either draw them closer or push them away forever. The fear of disappointment clawed at her, yet the desire for authenticity gnawed harder. Once again, distraction disrupted her intentions as another text pinged, a group message from her close-knit circle at the congregation, discussing the upcoming service. The absence of conversation around her art or even her journey left a hole that felt increasingly palpable. Would they ever understand? The fear that surged through her when she read about the excitement for the next event illuminated one harsh truth: staying silent would no longer suffice. She took a step back, contemplating the decision before her. Did she owe it to them to adhere to the image forged over decades? Or could she dare to reveal the multidimensional aspects of her existence? With a deep resolve swelling inside her, she began drafting a message, a reach into uncharted territory, a roadmap to her new identity. In the moments that followed, she poured her heart onto her phone's screen. She described the painting, the emotions behind it, the layers of freedom it embodied. The moment her finger hovered over the send button was electrifying, a precipice of transformation. The engagement with her craft was now inseparable from her life beyond the canvas. Every word felt like a brushstroke, adding dimension to the raw clarity emerging from her heart. As she pressed send, a cascade of adrenaline surged through her body. Betty had finally cast a line into the uncertainty, willing to embrace the possibility of rejection in pursuit of self-authenticity. It was not merely a confession of her artistic journey, it was an unveiling of her very essence. But just then, her phone buzzed again. An incoming call from her daughter lit up the screen, a reminder of the delicate web of expectations and familial attachments still ensnaring her heart. Glorious freedom and haunting doubt intertwined, creating an urgency she couldn't ignore. Would her daughter understand this shift, or would it solidify a rift she feared might lead her family further away from her true self? The phone continued to ring, each chime marking the approach of an uncertain conversation that could reshape everything. As she stared at the screen, indecision paralyzed her. Would she answer, confront, and risk it all? Or retreat to the painted world that now felt like both sanctuary and shackle? The voice on the other end could hold the key to her truth or the chains of her past. The choice was hers, and with it, the power to define her own narrative hung tantalizingly in the air. Betty's heart raced as she watched the screen light up. What if her daughter didn't understand? What if she dismissed Betty's new path entirely? The ringing felt like a countdown, and the weight of her choices nestled uncomfortably in her stomach. With a steadying breath, she picked up the call. "Hi, Mom." Her daughter's bright voice contrasted sharply with the tension coiling within her. "Hi, sweetie," Betty replied, her voice trembling slightly. "I just saw your message. Did you get the painting I sent you of my drawing?" Her daughter asked, excitement bubbling in her tone. "You'd be so proud of me. I really think I'm getting better." Listening to her daughter's enthusiasm ignited a warmth within Betty, but it also stoked the embers of doubt. Her responsibility as a mother pulsed through her, a need to protect and guide. "I'm so proud of you, honey. You're really talented," she offered softly, feeling the chasm of unspoken words loom between them. Thanks. I wish I could show you more of what I can do. You've just been so busy lately, her daughter continued, the weight of expectation hanging on her words. A brief silence filled the gap, as if both of them could sense the shift in their roles. I actually have something to share with you too, Betty said, the confession breaking through the fear that had constricted her for so long. What is it? Swallowing hard, she plunged into the depths of her emotions. I've been painting again. It feels like a way for me to express things I haven't been able to say. The words trickled from her lips cautiously, each one laden with the risk that her daughter might not understand. There was a pause on the other end, and in those fleeting moments, Betty's mind spiraled. Would she shrug it off? Would she think it frivolous? That's great, Mom. I mean, you've always been so good. What do you mean by express? Her daughter asked, genuine curiosity piercing through. She felt the warmth of connection growing, a small spark amid the chaos within her. I painted a sunset that reflects how I've been feeling. I think I've been hiding parts of my true self for so long, and painting is helping me to uncover it. At once, the conversation shifted from fear to exploration. Wow. Can I see it? Her daughter asked, eagerness evident. Yes, of course. Betty replied, her pulse quickening at the thought of sharing her work. But it's not just about the painting, it's about what it means to me. It's freeing. And you deserve to feel free, her daughter said, affirming Betty's struggle in a way that shone a light on her unspoken worries. Those words ignited something bold within her, almost a sense of validation. Thank you for saying that, Betty said, her heart swelling. It was more than a conversation, it felt like a bridge connecting their experiences, allowing vulnerability to seep through. They spoke a little longer, each exchange feeling like a stepping stone toward a more liberated understanding of each other. Betty could sense the fear lifting. Could it be that revealing her true self might actually enrich her family's dynamic rather than destroy it? After the call ended, she sat back, overwhelmed and exhilarated. The quiet of the studio seemed like a blank canvas, waiting for more of her vibrant, pulsating emotions to emerge. She picked up her brush once more, ready to re-engage with her piece, feeling emboldened by the morning's revelation. But the euphoria soon gave way to questions that clouded her mind. What would her husband say if he found out? Would the walls she had built around herself shatter in the wake of further disclosures? As she laid the brush against the canvas, a sense of impending confrontation loomed. Betty's artistic journey had already begun, shifting life's plates beneath her, and she could feel the tremors growing. What if she had to face not just her children's understanding but her husband's resistance? The tension was palpable now, and her heart raced as she contemplated the conversation still waiting to be had. The moment of reckoning was approaching, and with it, the chance to redefine all that she had considered sacred. Would she be brave enough to confront the questions, both personal and relational, that waited in the wings? How far was she willing to go to truly embrace her essence? The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in decades, her spirit soared, ready to embrace whatever would come next. Betty stood before her canvas, her fingers trembling with uncertainty, yet she gripped the brush tighter. Each stroke didn't just convey color, it transformed into a tool for her liberation. The initial gentleness of the sunrise motif had shifted during her call with her daughter into something deeper, an exploration of self she longed to inhabit fully. Yet, beneath the excitement lingered an incessant anxiety about what this newfound expression could mean for her relationships. She couldn't shake the thought of her husband, Mark. He hadn't seen the passion she once had for art, nor had he witnessed the changes curdling just beneath the surface of their everyday lives. In their tight routine, she had buried parts of herself that craved expression in favor of stability. How would he react if he saw her painting, saw this vibrant, unfiltered part of her? Would he be supportive or dismissive? The evening crept in as shadows danced across her workspace. Betty placed a palette of colors before her, mixing hues that mirrored her swirling emotions. The act of painting transformed her studio into a sanctuary of creativity. It was an intimate space where she could dissect her fears and dreams. Each brushstroke released a tension she had harbored for years, whispering truths to the canvas that she had yet to articulate aloud. Was she ready to share this journey, to unveil the woman she was reclaiming? Standing over her creation, she felt both vulnerable and empowered. The sunlight from the setting day created a flicker of warmth across her skin, urging her forward. But just as her heart dared to surge, a familiar voice shattered the soothing atmosphere. Mark had returned home. "Hey, you're still at it, huh?" His casual tone barely concealed the skepticism built from years of habit. "Just, working on something," she responded, an impulsive decision to keep her passion encased within her. "Do you have time for dinner? I thought we could plan that family outing for this weekend." He stepped closer, attempting to peek at her canvas. Her pulse quickened, it felt like a countdown to exposing the truth hiding behind the brush. There was always an undertone of disappointment when she shared her art ambitions with him. She hesitated, fighting the familiar instinct to retreat, to keep the peace, to pretend all was well. "I've been meaning to show you what I'm working on." "Okay, great. Just make it quick," he replied, stepping back with a smile. "You know how much I love family time." The words stung, amplifying her internal conflict. What might have once floated as an innocent remark now felt charged with expectation, complicating her desire to be true to herself. She glanced at the painting, her breath hitching at the thought of inviting him into this new aspect of her life. "Mark, can you sit for a moment?" The request surprised even herself, but she needed to organize her thoughts, to gather the courage that bubbled just under the surface. "Sure, Betty. What's up?" She grappled with her emotions, the vulnerability that often felt suffocating. "I've been painting again," she started cautiously. "It's important to me, and I believe it's something we need to talk about." His brow furrowed, caught off guard. "Painting? I thought you gave that up." "Isn't it just a hobby?" Betty felt the weight of that word hobby like a dismissal of her truth. "It's more than that for me now. It's becoming part of who I am again." "I see," he muttered, his unease palpable. "But you know I like our life the way it is. Don't you think a lot of changes are risky?" "Risky," she echoed, her resolve solidifying. Wasn't the pursuit of her own authenticity worth the risk? With every word, she felt her spirit yearning to break free from constraints, to demand respect for her desires. The conversation, albeit fragged, was opening cracks. The chance to articulate her truth made her pulse race in a dance of fear and exhilaration. "What if it's exactly what we need?" she challenged, her voice firming. "To dig deeper into who we are." Betty sensed Mark's resistance growing, apprehension coiled in the air around them. The question lingered heavy in the room, what would happen next? Would she retreat again, cloaked in doubt, or stand firm in her commitment to herself? The paintbrush, the vibrant colors, the creative release, it was all layered with promise. But would it break the surface of their marriage? Would Mark understand or walk away? In that moment, she felt the impending resolution of her journey looming closer than ever. As they stood at the threshold of uncertainty, the moment of truth hung suspended, teetering on the edge of possibility. Would her voice finally be heard? Or would familiar shadows consume her brave intentions? The air crackled with anticipation, her heart racing for the chance to travel this dangerous terrain. The next step was waiting, cloaked in the veils of exploration. Betty's heart raced as she faced Mark, feelings of fear and excitement intertwining in a chaotic symphony. She could feel the weight of his skepticism pressing down on her, a familiar shroud threatening to pull her back into the shadows of her former self. Yet, for the first time in a long while, she felt as if she was standing on the precipice of something transformative. This was not merely about painting, it was about reclaiming her identity, her voice, and the woman she had tucked away amid responsibilities and routines. "Betty," he began cautiously, "I just think you need to be careful. You know how life can get complicated." His gaze flickered briefly to the canvas, revealing curiosity marred by doubt. With newfound clarity, she pushed herself to confront his reservations, to navigate this emotional minefield without retreating into silence. "Mark, what is complicated about discovering who we are? About pursuing something that fills us with joy?" Her voice wavered, but within it surged a strength she'd thought lost. Her eyes narrowed, seeking the truth hidden beneath his surface-level responses. "You always talk about stability as if it's a safety net, but what if it's just a trap?" The words hung between them, a challenge. "I need to embrace what makes me feel alive again. Surely you can understand that." His expression hardened, the familiar lines etched deeply in his brow. "Sure, but doing that requires a hefty amount of time and sacrifice. Are you ready for that?" Those words reverberated painfully within her. Time had once felt like an enemy, now it seemed like a canvas awaiting her brush. The sacrifice he spoke of lingered as a ghost long unresolved, an echo of conversations held in the quiet hours of their shared life. But instead of deflecting, Betty drew strength from her resolve. "I want this, Mark. More than I want our routines. More than I want to hide. If we start risking things that don't serve us, we might find something real." Each sentence carved deeper into her soul, revealing fragments of a woman who had been presenting a facade for too long. Would he grasp the enormity of her transformation? Or would the fear of change suffocate her burgeoning identity once more? Her mind raced through possibilities she hadn't considered before. What if her art could bridge the gap? What if revealing this side of her could reignite not only her passion but also their connection? "I think we are both holding on to notions about who we should be, who we've been, that may not serve us anymore." She hesitated, contemplating her next words, summoning every fragment of courage she could find. "What if we could explore new chapters together? Can we evolve side by side?" Betty watched as his expression shifted, uncertainty battling with something else, vulnerability. She sensed an opening, a moment illuminating the space between them. Perhaps this could lead them somewhere neither had anticipated. The prospect felt daunting, but it also filled her with anticipation. Mark shifted his weight back and forth, as if wrestling with the implications of her words. "But what if our family can't handle that change?" In that moment, conviction surged within her. "What if they get to see us as full, authentic people? Isn't that worth exploring?" The question echoed like a mantra, revealing both her hope and underlying fear. The silence stretched, thick with the unspoken. Would their exploration of vulnerability lead them to discover more than just Betty's hidden truths? Would it tear them apart or forge them anew? As darkness enveloped the evening, Betty's heart thudded with unease. The journey illuminated unfamiliar paths ahead, shadowed by self-doubt and the apprehension that loomed over their lives. But for the first time in years, she felt bold. Mark's response could change everything. Just as she prepared to speak again, the doorbell rang, pulling them from their intimate confrontation. Betty's stomach knotted. What if the arrival of company posed yet another disruption? Could this unexpected intrusion derail her moment of awakening, or could it somehow bring clarity? The anticipation hung in the air, fragile yet electric, leaving them both at a critical juncture. Would they embrace the uncertain or cling to the familiar? Betty took a deep breath, the ringing doorbell cutting through the tension like a hot knife through butter. It pulled her thoughts back to the surface, reminding her of the realities she often wished to escape. Mark seemed caught between frustration and curiosity as he glanced toward the door. "Are we expecting anyone?" he asked, his voice taut. No, she replied, unable to shake the thread of anxiety weaving through her gut. Her confidence felt fragile, so close to shattering. When she moved toward the door, a simultaneous desire to flee and confront surged within her. The visitor could be anyone, a neighbor, a friend, or perhaps someone from their past that added another layer to the evolving dynamics of her life. She opened the door, holding her breath. Standing on the doorstep, framed by the evening's glow, was an old friend from her past, Lily. With her vibrant red hair and colorful scarf draped like a banner of defiance, she bore both warmth and spontaneity that reminded Betty of a time when she felt alive. In that moment, Betty knew the arrival felt almost prophetic. "Betty. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd see if you're free." Lily's enthusiasm poured into the entryway, filling the space with an irrepressible energy. Betty hesitated, glancing back at Mark, whose frown deepened at the unexpected intrusion. Her heart raced with tricks of familiarity, wrestling against the intoxicating surge of joy that Lily ignited. "Come in," she finally managed, stepping aside as Lily swept past her into the living room, immediately radiating life into the space. "What are you working on?" Lily's eyes darted to the canvas, revealing an eagerness that Betty had not anticipated. "It looks intriguing." At that moment, Betty felt the weight of Mark's skepticism pressing down again, defining both his presence and that of her past. "I'm trying to find my way back to painting," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Lily's expression brightened. "That's amazing. You've always had a talent for it. Why did you stop?" The question hung in the air, a weighty reminder that pierced through Betty's defenses. "Life, I suppose. Responsibilities. Expectations." Each word dripped with the complexity of choices unmade and lost opportunities. Lily's brow furrowed. "You have to let that go, Betty. Life is about more than just routines. It's about feeling, creating, exploring." Her excited insistence struck a chord deep within Betty, resonating with the burgeoning desire to explore her identity. Mark rubbed the back of his neck, his body language shifting as he felt the energy in the room convoluting. "It sounds great, but isn't the sacrifice of joy the most profound loss?" Lily interjected, her fierce gaze shifting to Mark. It was as if she sensed the unspoken battle between them, unwilling to let it remain unchallenged. Betty tucked her hair behind her ear, emboldened by Lily's energy. For a moment, she felt liberated, freed from the invisible chains that held her back. "I think I need to risk the unknown," she articulated, each syllable laced with the impulse of defiance. "That's the spirit." Lily cheered, clapping her hands together. "You should showcase your work. I have connections, we could set something up." The images flashed in Betty's mind, a gallery, her art displayed, an audience. But with each bright vision, shadows of doubt creeping in stood tall. She fastened her gaze upon Mark, searching for a reflection of understanding. Would he support her endeavor, or would he further exacerbate the fear that threatened to engulf her? Mark lifted his chin, a flicker of contemplation painted across his features. "Betty, are you really ready for that?" The room pulsed with the need for clarity as she confronted him. "It's not just about the painting anymore. I'm tired of hiding." As the walls of the room echoed with her declaration, she felt a profound sense of agency that had eluded her for too long. She faced the reality of her desires and the possibility that they could alter the trajectory of their lives. Lily leaned closer, igniting an infectious enthusiasm that wrapped around Betty like a protective cloak. But the uncertainty of how to proceed gnawed at her. Was she truly prepared to dive headfirst into this new chapter of her identity? The air thickened with unresolved questions, the boundaries of her aspirations stretching before her, a blank canvas as daunting as it was liberating. Would she possess the strength to exploit this moment of transformation, or would uncertainty cast her back into the shadows? With her heart pounding and determination flaring, she took a decisive step forward. What awaited her as she embarked on this journey toward self-discovery? The next brush stroke hung in the air, filled with tantalizing promise, but would she have the courage to paint it? Betty could feel the vibrations of her own heart pulsating in her ears, each beat echoing the internal struggle she'd tried to stifle for years. The warmth from Lily wasn't just invigorating, it ignited something dormant within her, a desire that clamored for air, desperate to be recognized. With hesitant determination, she shifted her gaze past Mark, who still wore the trace of skepticism like an unwanted burden. She could sense his concern, yet it only fueled her resolve. The weight of his gaze was no longer a shackle, it became a catalyst, urging her to explore the very essence of who she was beneath the facade of routine. Lily, Betty began, her voice steadying as she spoke, what if I really did showcase my work? How would I even start? The question slipped from her lips with an unexpected clarity, revealing the real desire buried beneath the trepidation. Lily's face lit up like a child's on Christmas morning. You have to take the first step. We'll find a place, a small gallery, maybe where you can show a few pieces. You can invite friends, family, it'll be exhilarating. Betty nodded, envisioning the possibilities. Would her art resonate with others? Would they see her heart laid bare on the canvas, stripped of worry and expectation? The prospect thrilled her even as the shadows of doubt lingered, waiting for the opportunity to encroach. Mark, standing a little apart, broke the burgeoning moment. Okay, but let us think about this rationally, Betty. An art showcase. What if it doesn't go well? His voice carried the weight of caution, an unmistakable tether to her past and the caution that had often dictated her choices. The doubt that crept in was suffocating, a sharp contrast to the fiery excitement ignited by Lily. What if it does? Betty shot back, surprised by the intensity of her own voice. I can't let fear dictate my decisions anymore. If I don't try, I will never know. Mark's brow furrowed deeper as he considered her words. But what happens if you fail? Is it worth the risk? That question hung in the air, oppressive and thick. Betty momentarily glanced at Lily, her friend's smile remained unwavering, an anchor amidst her internal turmoil. She longed to step away from the narrative that pinned her down, but the potential of stepping into the unknown terrified her. What if we redefine what failure means? Betty asserted, emboldened by her own introspection. Failure is only when we refuse to try. If I create, even if it doesn't resonate, I'm still living, still expressing. The conversation shifted the very atmosphere in the room, a tangible energy igniting around them. You've always faced challenges with creativity, Betty, Lily interjected. This is no different. Every brushstroke is a reflection of who you are. Let us show the world your truth. Betty's spirit soared, fueled by Lily's enthusiasm but still battling the tendrils of doubt. She grappled with the concept of vulnerability in creating art, exposing her deepest feelings, her insecurities, and her aspirations. Would her attempt be viewed as authentic? Or would it simply be dismissed as another hobby? Once again, she felt the penetrating gaze of Mark. And what should I do while you're out there chasing this dream? He asked, his tone softer now, vulnerability creeping into his demeanor. Her heart clenched at his loneliness and need for connection, but she also recognized it as a part of her journey, her needs bubbling to the surface while confronting those of Mark. We can figure it out together. But I need space to explore this side of me. In that moment of truth, Betty realized she was not merely fighting for her art, she was advocating for her autonomy, her unfiltered existence. This push toward the gallery was a defiance not just against complacency but against the expectations she had allowed to define her for too long. I am going to do this, she declared, the conviction in her voice palpable. I want to face whatever comes next, even if it's terrifying. As the words settled, a new determination emerged, marking the horizon of a crucial turning point. The path forward was uncertain, littered with potential distractions and pitfalls. How would she navigate the intersection of ambition and apprehension? The allure of a promising future was now entwined with her identity, ready to be painted into existence. But the wall of fear still loomed behind her, a reminder of what she could lose if she stepped too far into the light. As she directed a decisive look at the unfinished canvas, the brush awaited her command. However, whispers of doubt flickered at the edges of her mind, demanding acknowledgement. Would they become her companions on this journey, or would she banish them into oblivion once she took that first bold stroke? The space pulsed with anticipation, a pregnant silence promising both terror and liberation. Would she choose to act, to risk the turmoil for the possibility of transformation, the fusion of past fears and present aspirations? The essence of her untapped desires hung in the balance, poised delicately as the pivotal moment loomed closer. What would her first stroke reveal about the woman she was becoming? Betty stood before the canvas, her heart racing and her palms clammy. The blank surface loomed like a challenge, daring her to confront the myriad emotions swirling within. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, a steady reminder of the risk she was about to take. She had spent so long in the shadows, hidden behind the safety of predictability, and now the prospect of unveiling her true self felt both thrilling and paralyzing. What would her first stroke reveal? She took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of paint and possibilities. The room was a sanctuary, filled with the memories of countless hours spent dabbling in art, yet it had become a cage of dissatisfaction. Now, it beckoned her toward liberation. With trembling fingers, she picked up her brush, hesitating at first, as whispers of doubt clouded her mind. "You can do this," she muttered to herself, the words barely escaping her lips. She recalled Lily's warmth, her unwavering belief in her talent. That spark ignited something within Betty that no longer wanted to whisper, it wanted to roar. Finally, she dipped the brush into the vibrant paint, allowing its color to grace the surface of the canvas. The first stroke was cautious, tentative, a reflection of her own uncertainty. She paused after each movement, feeling the tension rise inside her. Had she made a mistake? The familiar grip of self-doubt began to creep back, coaxing her to abandon the endeavor, to give in to the safe confines of unremarkable routines. But she couldn't. Not this time. Each brushstroke was a declaration, a small rebellion against the fear that threatened to consume her. As she painted, she envisioned the reactions of her friends, the people she would invite to see her pieces. Would they find meaning in her work? Would they understand the struggles, the joys, and the stories interwoven with vivid colors? Her hand moved more confidently now, guided by an unseen force. Memories danced within her mind, moments long buried, experiences that had shaped her worldview. Every hue spoke of her struggles, triumphs, and the revelation of her essence. She let go of the fear of judgment, embracing her authenticity, each stroke a layer of understanding unraveling within her. Mark's concerns persisted, echoing in a corner of her mind. What would happen if she failed? She reminded herself that risk was inherent in growth. What if failure meant uncovering strengths she had never known? What if the great unknown would birth something beautiful? As she continued to paint, she felt liberated, shedding the weight of other people's expectations. At that moment, she wasn't just creating art, she was uncovering facets of herself that had been buried under years of conformity. Each stroke became a testament to her resolve and a reflection of the layers she had kept hidden. With the final flourish of paint, she stepped back, wiping her brow and surveying her creation. It was alive, chaotic yet harmonious, a patchwork of fears turned into a beautiful collage of resilience. The canvas was not just a visual representation of her talent, it was a declaration of her identity. This was a true embodiment of her journey, an intimate dialogue between her past and her aspirations. Yet, as she admired her work, a sense of unease settled in the pit of her stomach. What awaited her beyond this moment? The gallery, the unveiling of her vulnerable self, loomed like a storm. Even amidst her newfound fervor, she felt unsteady, susceptible to the very fears she fought against. Would her presentation of self be met with the same warmth as her brushstrokes? Or would it be clouded by critical voices that haunted her? Determined not to let doubt dictate her next steps, she grabbed her phone, resolving to take action. Each moment of hesitation was a moment wasted. She would call Lily, solidify plans to find a gallery, and step deeper into the light of her own truth. As she dialed the number, the phone rang, her pulse quickening with every tone, anticipation and dread coiling within her. Would this be the step that launched her into a world of acceptance or rejection? The call connected, and Lily's bright voice burst through the receiver, promising warmth and support. But at that moment, Betty couldn't shake the feeling that the biggest challenge lay ahead. It was time to confront not only her art but also the fears that came with sharing it with the world. Would she rise to meet the challenge or retreat once again into the shadows? Betty stood before her canvas, the vibrant strokes breathing life into the air around her. The moment had come. No longer shackled by the expectations that had held her captive for decades, she felt the weight of liberation coursing through her veins, urging her toward destiny. Each brushstroke was not just an articulation of color but a manifestation of her newly claimed freedom. In the days following her call with Lily, Betty took solid action. The email to the local gallery had been sent, the exhibition was set for the upcoming month. A few friends and family members were already RSVP'd, their encouragement a warm blanket against the cold sting of fear. She had shared her journey, her struggles, and the painting that represented her resilience with a select few, their smiles filling gaps that had been long left unfulfilled. As she continued to paint, new canvases emerged from her blossoming ambition, each filled with expressions she had long kept at bay. In this creative frenzy, she found not only her voice but her purpose. The artist within flourished, rekindling a spark that her father always recognized but she had diverted so many years ago. Once a timid participant in her life, now she was becoming the author of her own narrative. Setting up the exhibition gave her a moment of vulnerability she had never deemed necessary before. Rehearsing her words, she practiced how to explain her art, to reveal the depths of her soul in a way that would resonate. When she stood before the easel, the fear felt less like a barrier and more like a friend, a reminder of all that she had conquered. The day of the exhibition dawned, a cascade of nerves and excitement embroiling her. As people poured into the gallery, she felt an energy unlike anything she had experienced before. The moment her daughter entered the room, excitement danced across her features, illuminating her presence. "Mom, these are incredible," she declared, her eyes glowing with admiration as she began to wander through the collection. Betty's heart fluttered, nerves dissipated. As the conversations unfurled around her, Betty's words danced freely. Friends approached, drawn to her authentic passion emanating from each piece, recognizing the layers hidden behind the intricate strokes. "This one speaks to connection," one friend noted, gesturing towards a piece that depicted intertwined figures. "It feels as if it's drawing me into the story." Betty felt as though each comment was a brushstroke validating her existence and acknowledgement of all the roads she had navigated to arrive at this defining moment. She saw Mark in the corner, initially apprehensive, transformed into someone who was quietly observing, an unspoken support that she had long wished to experience. As the night unfolded, the gallery thrummed with laughter and conversation, a lively mosaic of shared emotions and mutual appreciation for her art. The insecurities that once clouded her vision faded, instead, the air was tinged with triumph. She had stepped out of her past into a vibrant existence, one that acknowledged all parts of her identity. When it was time for her to speak, the room fell silent, an attentive hush embraced her words. "Art has always been a part of my life. Today, it represents my journey toward freedom from expectations, from myself." This is a celebration of self-discovery, she said, her voice steady and resolute. As she concluded, the applause that erupted around her felt like a tidal wave of acceptance. With every clap, Betty allowed herself to feel a sense of accomplished pride. She had proven that the pursuit of joy through authenticity was undeniably worthwhile. In that moment on the gallery stage, Betty recognized how far she had come. What once felt like a mere hint of her true self now stood boldly before her, celebrated and cherished. Her father's legacy pulsed within each brushstroke, an artist forging a path to embrace the vibrant spectrum of life. When the night came to a close, Mark approached her with a gentler demeanor, his expression softening. "I didn't realize how significant this was for you, Betty. I should have listened more," he admitted quietly, the years of misunderstandings briefly ebbing in the newfound connection formulating between them. Taking her hands in his, he added, "I want to understand more about this part of your life." His words came as a gift she had not anticipated. In that moment, Betty felt the walls of her former insecurities crumble. She was ready to cultivate not only her individual identity but to nurture the connection she shared with her family, allowing them to witness the layers that made her whole. They were stepping into a new chapter together, each gripping the brush and creating the narrative of their lives. She stood taller, a solid confidence establishing itself within her. Gone were the self-imposed limitations that had kept her from pursuing her artistry. Betty had conquered doubt and walked into a realm filled with self-acceptance, surrounded by love and support. As she surveyed her exhibition one last time, she felt an unwavering sense of fulfillment. She had turned the key toward her dreams, embracing the woman she always wished to be. And with every ounce of pride enveloping her heart, she took a deep breath. This was only the beginning. Now, as you stand at the edge of your own journey, don't let this moment slip through your fingers. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to support true stories of personal overcoming. Don't wait even one more second to share.